if you don't take a volunteering option, maybe you're not taking a job option. Maybe you're not taking a growth opportunity option. And it's not that you don't take their calls. It's that you can't sometimes address in one call the amount of feelings. When it comes to the support, a lot of organizations might be like, well, I'm not a psychologist. I can't deal it.
There's different rules, unspoken rules as well.
After a week or two, you're just exploding with all your emotions. Welcome to the Volunteer Support Podcast, brought to you by the European Union's co-funded project Promptus.edu, a collaboration between associations Audis Out Mori and Building Bridges.
And welcome to Promptus.edu's first podcast with Gabrielle, Tadas, and your speaker, Jose. How are we all doing today?
Great.
I'm so excited. Now I'm energetic, where it was all morning.
I think just being in front of the mic really brings it home, eh? It's like, oh, this is real.
Yeah.
But it feels surreal to me, at least.
Well, did it not feel real on the airplane when you were on your way here? That's pretty real.
Yeah, it was a bit.
Good. Well, here we are. We're on day 2 of planning the next 24 months of our project. Right? 24, 18 months?
I believe it's 18 months.
18 months.
18 months of our project. There you go. See, that's why project managers need to always look at their Gants, because you're never going to remember how long you have. Yeah. So this is, the kickoff. We're getting ready for a lot of work coming up, and a lot of new lessons to be learned. Well, today's going to be a day of lessons.
Long day for everyone.
Yeah, some people will come, some people will join online. 2 probably will be here with us, and 5 online.
6 probably.
Okay.
With Luisa. I've forgotten to factor her in, so
okay.
That's another perspective there, which is going to be interesting as well.
Okay. Yeah. Some technical things we are solving.
I think we're going to learn a lot from the technical side, because it's like the day of the show, it's like, expect everything to go wrong. That's normally, you could prepare, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah. But what we will get, it will be some information from volunteers, what they need, what they like, how they are feeling, and so on. And that could be useful for our podcasts.
As I remember when we were just planning what we're gonna do here as we come, the idea was just to extract some information from volunteers. How are they feeling? What do they want and expect from here? Maybe they need some support. And now we have the whole day of activities. So I think that's improvement.
Yeah, it's going to be a day. It's going to be a day. But I think there's been so much leading up to this that I think I want to kind of ask you, now that we're here, finally, looking back on all the expectations that you had, and all the feelings that you had. I think this goes very much to our project now. Let's talk about our feelings, because we should. How do you feel just in general?
This morning, this point of life, or this project?
You know what? Let's cover all of that. Start at this morning and then,
Starting this morning, I woke up tired because all night my mind was still on the project, what we're going to do, how to arrange the things, what would be the best way to bring the best out of everyone, to create a very nice and loving atmosphere that would be safe to share, not to push something too much, not to leave everything messy. So yeah, my mind was on that the whole night. But I woke up without alarm, so I guess the sleep was enough, but my mind wasn't recovered fully. And as I woke up, I went to the shower. Then it's all great. I love hot showers. For me, that's a little bit of a therapy. I relaxed and everything. And everything went really smoothly today in the morning. Regarding to expectations for today, I do have expectations for myself. I do have and I don't want to push too much on myself. I feel like we prepared as much as we prepared. Now it would be the best thing that I can do is to live in the moment and to feel around the group, the energies and so on. So just trying to be in the moment.
Fair enough.
That's why it was really nice to have this breathing exercise that we did in the morning. I really felt okay now. Yeah, I do feel here and now.
I needed it. I asked for it because it didn't come from a place of, oh, I want you to feel good and let's do your exercise. It came from a place of, I need this for myself today. Could you help me out? So yeah, Tadas, do you want to tell us a little bit?
I feel quite calm, I would say, at this point. Tiredness was also the feeling in the morning.
Yeah.
As Gabriel said, we came, we went also sightseeing in the Madrid. We were walking like 27,000 steps.
Oh my God.
Yeah, day by day.
It was falling off.
So when yesterday we met with you, Jose, energy levels was not the max.
Yeah.
And then we were talking and planning and so on. So yeah, then yesterday it was a tiring day. But today, quite a lot of things is actually done by Gabriela. She will be the main facilitator. But I feel that she is prepared for that. She done various workshops similar like that, and I know that she's afraid and so on, and that's natural. I just trust her. So for my part, it's also the things that it's not that difficult, nothing that new. I really like the psychiatrist quote. He's Lithuanian, but he's saying that if you are really hard trying, then it means that you don't know how to do it.
Right.
So then first you have to learn it and then not try, but just do it.
Yeah.
Because then there is no stress and so on.
Yeah.
So we are doing what we know how to do, and that's a relaxing thing.
I think that's really well said, and I think that helps us get to the point of, just understanding that we do know what we're doing. It's a new context of doing it, but we know what we're doing. We know the needs. We know that we have the tools. Well, you have the tools. I don't have the tools. I have information, which I'm willing to share, but you have the tools, and I think those are really important tools. But just to kind of like put it into words, because we've been talking, we've said the project title at the beginning. Let's look back on what this project is and what we're trying to achieve with it. And I think like if we ask that question to each other, we are going to be similar, but maybe everybody's going to have, that little variance in their focus. So let's do that as an exercise as well, kind of like to see where we're at in defining this. So You want to start?
Yeah, so this is a very nice project that came quite naturally from the previous project, the interaction between our organizations that we had. And Jose saw a need for the volunteers to have more information about their emotions and feelings and how to deal with that in their volunteering experience. And that's a very nice tool that we can create. But the other thing, what I'm seeing is also that we can help just in general for people to just find about the opportunities that they can go to, just know what they want, or they can just learn something new and then use that for the work. Some of the volunteers are also the people that are just trying to find the workplace that they want to work in. And I believe that's a very important thing, as the volunteers themselves could feel better after this, and also the society in general is happier and more productive and so on.
I can sum up your saying in like very simple words: to match the needs of the hopefully future volunteers with the opportunities that the European Commission or organizations can offer.
For sure
As well.
Do you have your own definition maybe of what this project is and the goals that we have?
So I feel like from the broader perspective, in society we do not speak enough about feelings, the more pleasant ones, and especially the ones that are feeling a little bit more sore. So I'm hopefully bringing awareness and vocabularies to speak about it and open up these new areas and to address the feelings, not to suppress them somehow. And for me, the very high motivation comes from seeing a need. Maybe that's how my brain works.
Yeah.
And when Jose says like a lot of volunteers are not coming here, not because they cannot afford or they don't know how to do, but because they cannot deal with the emotions behind it. So for me, that's saying not only that they are not going to volunteer, they are not taking other opportunities, job opportunities, maybe learning opportunities and so on. So it's not just to prepare yourself to go volunteering, it's to prepare yourself for life, for work, for taking bigger steps and live more fully.
Yeah, I think that was really kind of profound. It's kind of like looking at yeah, we're trying to impact this, but the need or what's established this need is probably more deep rooted, and it's affecting them in more parts of their lives than even we're aware of or that they're aware of. Because it's like you said, if you don't take a volunteering option, maybe you're not taking a job option, maybe you're not taking a growth opportunity option. From my perspective, I understand and validate the fear behind this type of decision, even approaching it. Something that for me has always been kind of like present. Obviously, I was not raised in Europe. I grew up on the other side of the Atlantic. So I've had that experience. And that was a scary prospect, you know, and a lot of elements creep up on you to create that culture shock or to contribute to it. And then those are the things that you hold on to in the end to try to get yourself back to your, you know, your safety zone, back to your happy place, if you will. And I see that with the volunteers constantly. Like whenever they call within the first 2 weeks, you know exactly what they're going through. And the first thing is like, oh, well, you know, my house seems like, you know, it was dirty when I got here, or it's ugly, or, oh my God, there's like this rusted thing on the washing machine, which, I mean, we dig deeper, right? To find out, well, what's happening? Send me a picture. And then you realize that it's just like a little corner and you're like, okay, I get it. Your brain's holding on to anything that it can to try to get that culture shock or to process all of those feelings that you don't know what they are. And when we connected with that one Erasmus exchange that we miserably failed at getting participants for you, I immediately, it was like click. It's like these guys are doing exactly what my volunteers need. And you were doing it in a really different context, because I think that had more to do really with perhaps healthy habits and making decisions. But I don't think it was necessarily about the whole ecosystem around that. And that's kind of where we are going with this project right now. But I immediately just saw it. Like, I remember speaking to you on the phone and you sounded so disappointed. I was like, this man is never going to want to take our phone call again. Like, I don't even want to hear, I don't even want to know the many times that you cursed us out, which would be totally valid. You're allowed your anger. I validate it. You didn't you though?
No.
A little bit. I would have cursed me out. But the minute that we talked, then I remember that conversation really well. It was like, listen, I understand what you're doing, because we discussed what the theme was and what you were trying to do. Let's talk in the future. Like, after I said, listen, we're not going to make this, because we had one person, I think it was, and then that wasn't enough to fill the group, so you couldn't allow them to go. And I was like, no, let's talk again, because I see it. And then we spoke again, and then you didn't have the stress of the training course anymore, and that helped. And I think it was just super, like you said, it was very organic. It was very natural.
It was a couple months after we finished the mobility. At that time, when we were talking, I remember the talk, I was not cursing any words. I was not happy. I was a bit upset. But the other thing is, there was lots of other things going on. And then the mind of mine was, okay, what can I do and what I can't do? So if I can't change the situation, then don't worry about that. So that was my approach. And then I was just worrying about the other stuff, about some other countries that I still need to collect the participants.
Right.
That was almost to that 5 participants threshold.
Yeah. That was the year that we confirmed our learning that May is not a kind month for training courses and or youth exchanges in Spain. And that has a particular reason. And that's kind of that's what you learn from the volunteers or from the participants, you learn their behaviors throughout the years and you see what the patterns are. So if anybody contacts me now and they're like, listen, I have this training course, it's in May, and I'm like, I cannot commit to anything. I literally will not commit to anything. I'll say, we can try if you want us to, but we're not committing to anything. So if you have a minimum, let me know right now, because it's not going to happen.
But actually, I do remember our talk, because you, Jose, and Tadas, you talked to each other about there is an opportunity maybe to create a tool and so on. And then Tadas speaks to me do we want to do it? Do we not want to do it? What is it about? Maybe we still have a lot of things of our own to deal with. And there was a lot of consideration, but I felt for me, that is, I've seen a need and I'm like, okay, where can I be? And sometimes I find myself in crazy situations only because I see, okay, I can be valuable here. Maybe I can do something about it. And I go for it. And for me, that was motivation. I feel like I maybe maybe infected you with my excitement. And yeah, it was both of our choices.
Yeah, it was. I also like to help other people.
Yeah,
that's also the choice in my life. Like
a yes man through and through. I just saw the need because I know that it's not just us. Like we send a lot of people, and that means that this is an opportunity to have something that is tailor-made, quote unquote, to this experience. But it's something that I know that even when you send 12 volunteers a year, even that is hard because you want to support them, but you have 20,000 other things to do. And it's not that you don't take their calls, it's that you can't sometimes address in one call the amount of feelings that we're doing. So if you notice, something that we've talked about and you've been very adamant about, and I think rightfully so, is let's give you vocabulary. Because in the end, I don't think that this tool is going to be like, oh, I've heard this podcast, I am now calm. I think it's, I've heard this podcast, I now have the tools to try to process this on my own, because why not? I think that could be something. But then I also have the words to convey, how am I feeling? Because that's very confusing for us as well. When I get the culture shock, I have to sit down and kind of decode what is being said to me, because it's not always the words that are being said. So if you give them, the volunteers, the tool to at least say, hey, do this exercise, let's try to name that, call the devil by its name. Don't disguise it. That really helps us to objectively then, in less amount of time, be able to say, okay, we can help. And have that meaningful conversation, or consider what the options are for them, because we're constantly helping them to make good decisions. But in the end, those decisions belong to them, not to us.
Absolutely. It's from both sides, from as an accepting organization and as responsibilities that you are coming here. You are responsible for some part. But when you were talking, I somehow went to the back of my head and just remembered about competencies. That's what we are trying to do, to bring competencies to deal with the emotions and to go to unknown. And some parts is from our side, because competencies are the knowledge, information. Okay, that's what we can do here. We can speak and feel during the podcast, we can share the knowledge and information. But what we cannot do, but only give task or something, is to have skills to deal with it. Maybe we can speak about how to approach, or to give exercises, maybe to reflect, or to see during the week what you were feeling, maybe, and so on. So the skills is the responsibility of the listener to develop if they want to deal with it. You can hear about healthy eating, about the jogging. If you don't do it, doesn't work. Right. So you need skills to actually apply. And then there is attitudes. So the attitudes we can also touch a little bit to different aspects of volunteering or the feelings. So it's also during the reflecting, but it's a competence.
No, for sure. Yeah, for sure. There's this great saying that is you can lead a horse to water, but it's only going to drink if it wants to, if it's, and that's the best you could do. You kind of take the horse to water, and if it's thirsty, then it's going to drink. And if not, that's okay. It doesn't matter. But yeah, when we're talking about competencies, number one, how amazing is it that the EU is willing to kind of fund our initiative? I think we did a really good job together of expressing what we wanted to do. So, but they were really good at giving us this chance. I think, they saw the need as well, and we said it in no uncertain terms in the project. We said, we know that there's not just a need, but this is something that is actually lacking. We're taking care of volunteers in a really practical way. And that's great. That's great because you're obeying the program rules, the regulations, and then you're also then falling back on the practical sort of culture, if you will, of the organizations that are hosting. But post-pandemic, we discovered that it was okay to start talking about certain feelings because we couldn't hold them in anymore. But then we realized how many times a day we don't talk about these feelings, or we don't acknowledge these feelings. And that's something that when it comes to the support, a lot of organizations might be like, well, I'm not a psychologist, I can't deal with it. And I do understand that there are things that are always going to be beyond us. We're not mental health experts, but facilitating information and speaking of wellness and speaking of, some tools that are very basic, but that they just escape us. I think that's, that initiation. And then if you want to know more, if you want to learn more, go down that route, you know?
And I also feel like it's not all the times that the organization is there to fill all the emotional support and so on. So maybe as the volunteers has these competencies to recognize emotions, how to deal, so they can talk to each other in better way, like peer-to-peer support.
Yeah.
Not only to vent to the person behind, like that's working on the project, but maybe to vent to each other, build like a connections and deal it in a better way. Because usually they do that. It's like during drinking or something, but it's not always effective. So,
and drinking is a great social lubricant, but I don't think it's really good to like your emotions, like, or to identify your emotions and then be able to communicate them effectively. Normally it's like 2 drinks and then you're crying. That's not a good journey. I don't think that's a good journey. I think that's skipping some really crucial steps.
Yeah, to have effective and deeper talk with each other and understand what you want to do in your life, how you're feeling about. But that's a bit also the skill to learn and also the place that you have to go to yourself, because if you want to have that deeper connection, you have to open yourself, and you have to be vulnerable. And if you're going to a new place, then it can be a hard thing.
Yeah. People don't we speak a lot about mobility, and we speak in Europe about Article 45, free movement of people, ideas, and goods. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things in the world, by the way. Like, as a general value, I absolutely love it. But that is hard. It's especially the moving people around part, because leaving that comfort zone is really something that, even in a context, I don't think the union is still at that point where you feel that the minute you leave your particular country and you're in another one, that you're still home. One of the things that I've noticed talking to some of my volunteers before they leave is that they're like, oh, because I'm going to Europe, and I want to volunteering in Europe. And I'm like, wait, Spain is in Europe. It is literally part of the same tectonic plate. It is the same continent. But I get what they're saying. They don't feel that attached to the concept of or part of a union. And that's something that we need to work on, but that's not necessarily this project. What this project is about facilitating perhaps the recognizing of that and saying, well, let's deal with that feeling then of you being outside of your comfort zone. And then hopefully that does open them up then to recognizing that in those differences that they're experiencing, that number one, that they could be something very positive, but number two, that you're not that far away from home as you think. It's still kind of like an integrated thing. I remember I was just in the Czech Republic, which culture shock, right? Complete culture shock. I was also in Sweden, and complete culture shock as well. Well, not only is it far away, but it was I think I mentioned this to you before, I speak almost 4 languages, and I was entirely out of context. And that was such a feeling, because I never have that feeling of, oh, I want to go home. I'm so uncomfortable. And I caught myself feeling that. And I remember thinking that, we had this meeting coming up, and I remember relating that feeling, thinking, my God, what must my volunteers think when they get to the Czech Republic? And maybe many of them don't speak perhaps as many languages that you could kind of try to identify, They've got less tools around them, and they still do it. And I'm like, no wonder they call and they're kind of freaking out at the beginning. I get it. I get it, because I was having that feeling. It was a very strange feeling for me to have, but it put me in their shoes for the better part of the trip, because I don't think I ever it just got better because I knew I was coming home.
Mm-hmm. And it's limited time.
It's a limited time, but then what if that was going to be for 12 months? Let's talk about that. That's a scary prospect. To all the volunteers who may or may not be hearing this, I fully acknowledge that 12 months is a scary span of time, and I salute you for selecting that. So thank you.
For me, it was a bit strange when yesterday you talked about the Swedish traveling experience.
Yeah.
As with Gabriela, we are from Lithuania, so that's a small country. The population of the country is 3 million. So you're talking the language that almost nobody understands.
Yeah.
Now we are in Spain, we are talking on Metro, and we understand that probably nobody is understanding if you're not using international words. Yeah, we have secret language. So of course we know English language, and lots of younger generation in Lithuania do know English language quite well. And then the older generation was, because of the Soviet Union, knew Russian language.
Right.
So the small nations, I believe, has this already open up for the languages. But when we are traveling, we still don't understand Spanish at all, or some Czech Republic or in Sweden. It's just,
because we have like, there's no cultural like overlap at all.
And even in Poland or like even in Latvia, it's too much of the difference. So I myself and probably Gabriela felt from their little age that if it's another country, it's different language, we don't understand lots of things, it is something different. So for me, it was strange that you didn't felt that earlier. That it was quite later for you to feel this. But what's also the thing that we can take from the cultural experience in different countries, that even though in my society, in my house, there are some rules, those rules are not applied in different country, but it doesn't mean that other rules are worse than mine.
Right.
Maybe we can learn something over there. Or maybe both of those ways are good enough. It's just based on different conditions that is done.
Even though we can speak about social bubbles, even though in Lithuania, if you would end up in different family, some things are acceptable, some things are not. There's different rules, unspoken rules as well. Sometimes you can leave this here, but you cannot leave it here. And maybe some tensions there and so on. I think it's a lot about the unspoken rules.
You said it and I was like, oh, right, the unspoken rules. And it is really, because where is it written that you don't leave the mop or the broom, in X place, but you leave it always in the back room, like, where is that written? But then you find somebody who leaves it like in the front door, and you're like, why is this? Is this a welcoming committee?
Or some people are walking with shoes in the house and some people don't.
Right. I walk with shoes in my house, by the way. Oh. Not my room though. Not my room. See, I was going to go into, this is personal because it's like shoes inside my house. That's like, I need to be aesthetically pleasing. So I want to wear shoes that match my outfit. Because then if I wear the flip-flops, then it's like, oh, look, I'm nicely dressed until you get to the flip-flops. But that's,
You dress up?
I dress up. Oh, yes, I do. Dress up for yourself.
And other perspective is to not have the shoes in the house, as you are taking dirt from outside and just to make it cleaner.
Right. And I do see the value in that because, for example, while I do the shoes, when I'm going to go in my bed, I do take my pants off. I change my pants because I think that I've been sitting in like, you lean against a wall, you sit in some weird places, you ride the metro. Like that is not a clean pair of pants. Okay. Not for your sleeping area anyways. So then I do have that. One of my main advices for my volunteers is the first day is a magical day in your house and you need to tell people what bothers you like right away. Because at that point, it hasn't happened yet. You haven't been bothered. So nobody can feel like personally attacked or offended. It's just something that you've communicated and now they know, And if it happens, then they'll probably be more compelled to excuse themselves or to say, oh, I know you said this and I'm sorry because it's a habit for me. Like there's a lot of ways out of it if somebody has already said something. But the problem is after a week, if you have that one roommate that, uses the kitchen and it looks like they fried an egg on the countertop because there's so much grease on it. And then you go like, oh, well, that really bothers me. If they've been there for even a week longer, that's a very empowering thing. So if the person who did it or knows that they did it, they're going to be like, oh, look at the new one, coming in here, putting rules. It's going to be personal. It's going to be personal.
Yeah, or it could be a way that you are just in the new environment and then you're used to that new environment and then it doesn't bother you anymore.
Yeah.
Or what else is happening quite often that we are feeling something, but we are not saying to other people that. And we are thinking, oh, that person understand that.
Yeah.
It's not.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. And then that person doesn't know.
I know. And then the worst thing is
after a week or two, you're just exploding with all your emotions, like how you're not reacting to this.
And it makes it worse. We had the case of two volunteers who had a problem with a third volunteer that was the roommate in the same apartment. And apparently this other volunteer would come home late and make like all of this noise. It wasn't the coming late. They didn't mind that. It's the fact that they made all this noise. And they just weren't aware that this was bothering people. I'm like, but did you tell them that it bothered you? They're like, well, yeah, we eventually had a meeting. And I said, well, that doesn't sound like you knocked on their door and said, hey, I can hear you listening to that podcast at 1:00 in the morning. I need you to turn that down.
Or use headphones.
Or use headphones, which, by the way, there's a lot of people that need to, apparently there needs to be like some kind of EU subsidy for headphones. There's no need to walk around watching reels on your cell phone on the metro. But these girls, I found out they went from, it started happening, it bothered them. They didn't say anything. It got to the point of where they had to have a meeting with their coordinator and their mentor. And then this person who said that she just wasn't aware. And I think that's super valid. And I said, well, that's super valid. And then by the time that they were telling me about it, it had already been months. And they're like, but we're not going to say anything because we don't want it to be uncomfortable. And our volunteering ends next month. So I'm not going to do anything about it. And I said, well, no, wait. It's not about empowering yourself. If it's bothering you and you've already opened the door to say, hey, they're aware of it. They might not be aware that they're doing it, but you have the aperture to say a message, hey, I just heard you come in, if you could please keep it down. But they weren't doing that. So the other person they continued to do it, but they just, again, were not aware. Some people are very socially aloof. Things that they're doing or not doing.
Yeah, it's a lot about communication. And especially if unaware, say it straight away, because after some time it becomes awkward. You live with us for so long and you didn't say anything.
Right.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
And just being open, I guess. But at the same time, some people are picking every single details.
Right. There's extremes on both ends. There's extreme on both ends.
Of course, if you will be like, this and that. But I'm trying to remember the way I was introduced to the new house rules when I came to Spain. I think it was the first or the second day that my roommates be like, okay, we have a schedule for cleaning.
Right.
Yeah, and I just knew, okay, I will be needed to take care of this stuff.
Yeah.
They're gonna take care of other stuff. And it was straight away. We are doing like this, we're doing like that. You are aware of the rules, but not everyone is doing that, of course.
Yeah.
Not everyone is having these clear boundaries and conversations.
That's a nice term, house rules, yeah? In the house, we have some rules and we can decide on the rules. Yeah. But we can't change other person. Other person is also having the way that person acts, and then we have to deal with the other person also. So we can't just come in and the first day say that, oh, you have to change and you have to change and everything will be around me.
And there's feelings all over that. There's feelings on one side, there's feelings on the other side, there's feelings on the side of the people who are witnessing the imminent clash between the two personalities who might be, clashing at that point. It can be really messy. But that's what we're here to try to give them tools. Hopefully, I do have an expectation. I'm expecting that this project is going to make me and our organization better at supporting and sending, not just because we use the tool that we're looking to develop, meaning these series of podcasts that will help as that support system, but because I think I want at the end of this project cycle, just be more aware. Because the same way that I just said, there's a lot of feelings. Obviously, there's a lot of feelings on our end as well. And how we transmit that or how we communicate those feelings, opinions, advice, and things like that is also super important. So I also want to put that out there to the universe, my expectation universe.
When you come to volunteering, you think about yourself, what you are dealing with, what is your expectation from there, from the experience, from the housing, from the learning point of view, whatever you're volunteering about. And you sometimes not focus about the other side. You feel oh, this is a big organization. They know what they are doing. I only have to fit in.
Right.
But they also have their own stuff going on. Expectations as well.
Oh, yeah.
You said you would like to talk about expectations during later sessions.
Yeah.
But they have the expectation, they have the feelings as well.
Yeah.
It's not a third party that is there.
I think something really specific that I'm looking forward to in the project, because I think it's going to be a good exercise for me and perhaps for us, is really understanding at what point you can impact, or that you can impact the expectation that that volunteer develops before they've even left for the volunteering, because that is also a problem of, oh, come here, it's wonderful, you know, it's great. It's kind of like getting a job in companies, you know, the minute
we are all family.
We are all biggest red flag in the whole wide world. It's like, we're all family here.
Yeah, do not have unrealistic expectations.
Right. And it could be about really practical things like the accommodation or the activities. You can't say that everything's going to be, oh, it's like sunshine and roses, you know. No, it's work. I mean, the volunteer goes there and they are developing things that the organization needs to be done. But then there's also like things with the apartment that they might have, you know, like the housing in general. Like you could set an expectation and tell them. I tell them without knowing, like, zero context of what their accommodation is going to be. The first thing I like to tell them, I'm like, listen, the guide for the program says that it needs to be a habitable and dignified residence. That doesn't mean it needs to be pretty. What do I want to say with this? I mean, the EU does not take responsibility for the bad taste in decoration of anyone. If you get pink walls and green curtains, you're getting pink walls and, you know, and green curtains. What you have there then is an opportunity to have a personal project with the rest of the volunteers to perhaps make it more to what you think the apartment should be. If you can, if they allow you. But please have that expectation that that is going to be what it is. And that's been one of the most effective things that we have learned to do, but we've learned to do it. That means that we've had people leave volunteering, call us in tears about things that absolutely do not fall under, like, I've gotten calls from a volunteer telling me this organization is horrible, you know, and then they're mistreating us. And I'm like, well, what's wrong? They had a dirty oven. Okay. And I'm like, okay, wait, well, we can talk about this. You know, it's valid. That's the first thing. Like, it's funny at the beginning, but it's valid. But it's like, that's when you realize you're like, there's something else here. This cannot be about an oven. You know, enter Gabrielle and Tadas and teach us about what that deeper, you know, could potentially be.
Sometimes we cannot name the things that are happening. And even like in the relationship between couples, when you are fighting, you're fighting like real bad. But when you say like, what were you fighting about? Sometimes you cannot even name it. And it's the same with the organization, okay? It's the dirty oven. No, maybe you were not taken into consideration. Maybe you were not heard. Maybe you didn't explain, but you still feel the need that you want to be heard.
Right.
So it's so, as we are going to talk today, the feeling is just like recognizing that there is a need, maybe fulfilled or not.
Right.
And what is this need? How we can address it.
Right.
Okay, so I can tell a bit more about emotions and feelings. So emotion is not conscious. It's just we are feeling something, but it's not in our brain processed yet. The feelings is already processed and we understand, okay, this feeling and this feeling. So some people can feel some emotions, but they don't have the vocabulary, they don't have that emotional intelligence to understand what feelings do they have. So they can complain about the oven, even though it's something different. Yeah. So in this podcast series, what we also want to raise emotional intelligence, to get a bit of that vocabulary that you can name what's actually bothering you. And then you can communicate in a better way with a coordinator or with some people around.
To your mentor, or like you said, to your peers. Just that was a good recap there. You were thinking about those feelings and those words. They came out very well spoken.
We all talked quite well here. I believe in this podcast we covered lots of different topics that came quite naturally. Yeah. But I believe we should sum up.
Well, I think it's going to be a great project. It's not an expectation that I have. It's a feeling that I have. I think you guys, number one, you guys are like the cutest people in the world. Like heart shape with hands. Hopefully we can get a lot of video of you two so everybody can get to understand what I'm saying right now. And I think we have, we've been jiving. It's been like, vibing, and it's been good. It's been good. I think there's like a lot of not necessarily overlapping interests, but overlapping intentions. And I think that's really good because then what we do is collaborate in order to get there. And I'm personally really happy that you both said yes to writing this project and having this project. Maybe one day you can tell me how surprised and shocked you were when we got the approval for it. Because that must have been a moment.
We were happy.
You were happy, I'm sure.
No, I think when we get K1 and now we get K2, the feeling was ambivalence. We were happy and we were like, okay, this is happening.
Yeah,
This is real. So,
That sounded more like fear than ambivalence, eh?
no, it's a fear, but also with like you are excited. You wouldn't go if it's the only fear.
Yeah. At one time, we are feeling different feelings. So happiness was probably one of the first, but then it's about, okay, now we will really have to do it. And then it's about the obligations and so on. And then dealing with some other plans, personal jobs that we also have and so on. So yeah, that was, but we finished quite recently K1 project that we had before. And yeah, we are starting this one now.
Perfect. It's only going to be a matter of time before you get addicted to the action and you're like, well, we're going to write another K1 or something like that.
We will see.
We can tell everyone in a future podcast what K1 and K2 mean, because that would be way too long of a podcast right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you guys for joining in, for talking.
Thank you. And I guess, did we just have a podcast? Did we just finish our first podcast? Can we get some applause for that? I think we should get some applause.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a point in time where we admit that we're having as well like way too much fun with the equipment.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for everything, guys. I really do, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being willing to take this journey with us.
Yeah, I'm also very thankful for you, Jose, as you was the one that had this idea in the first place and offered
Visionary.
us.
I saw the potential.
Yeah.
You guys already had the idea, so
We have like a dynamic. You are a visionary, sensing that this can be something. Then I'm very grounded, so I'd be like, always how to present like the methodology and so on, how
Right.
to bring it to the level of the ground. Like,
right.
And you are with the technical point of view, with the medical point of view.
I think it's a really nice synergy because it's a lot of aspects being covered. You know,
As I'm seeing, we
we could go on.
yeah,
We could never
we
shut
can't
up.
stop. So the podcast will be a lot talking, and we will be doing that over there. Okay, so thank you for the first podcast, and goodbye, listeners.
Goodbye, listeners.
Bye.